look, we tried to put the introduction here. Explain what your organization is doing, what needs are not being met. And I assume it is Poland is ground zero here for this challenge. What help do they need?
Thanks, Chuck, for your interest. I've been speaking to our team on the ground in Poland today. And I think the way to understand this is to see that there are three parts to the humanitarian crisis in Ukraine and around it at the moment. Part one, and the most extreme, is the people who are stuck in the cities where there is fighting. They're hiding in bomb shelters, they're hiding in undergrounds, in metro stations, and they're under bombardment. We've got the prospect of siege of cities, and we remember that from the 1990s in Sarajevo, but also from Syria. Second part of this is people on the move inside Ukraine. Richard Engels doing an amazing job of showing some of the needs at the train stations. And then you've got the third group, who are the people who make it to safety in Europe. And you're absolutely right to say there's been a strong European reaction, a united European reaction to welcome these refugees, 1 million of them so far. But the needs inside Ukraine are only going to grow. And that's where our greatest fears are at the moment. Healthcare, water, food, those are all going to be extremely important in what I think is going to be days, weeks, and months ahead.
I'm curious, there have been some reports, as much as the neighboring countries have liberalized their border laws and some of their documentation needs, there has been some documented proof. I want to read you a statement from the International Organization for Migration that some non-Ukrainian nationals that have been trying to flee have been held up. We have credible, this is what they wrote, we have credible and verified information from partners and humanitarians present on borders with neighboring countries that have documented discrimination against several third country nationals arriving in neighboring countries. They also have documented act of xenophobia based on people's race, ethnicity, and nationality. This, if you recall, during the North African migration crisis into Eastern Europe, we saw a lot of prejudice essentially get used in keeping people from going across the border there. Are you seeing this, and what are we doing about it?
Yes, we had a statement out on Wednesday about the same thing. This is an appalling abuse. Refugees are teachers, they're accountants, they're journalists, they're charity workers, they're farmers, they're people, and it doesn't matter what their race or their religion is, or it shouldn't matter. And there's been an appropriate outcry in the last 2 days. My information this morning is that there have been significant changes on the European side of the border. They need to be changes on the Ukraine side of the border as well. You're absolutely right to draw attention to this, because every one of these people is a story of a heartbreaking tragedy. And it's absolutely essential, given the values that are at stake in this crisis, the values of, frankly, decency and the rule of law, that they're not sullied by appalling discrimination. The overwhelming number of people are obviously Ukrainian, but there are people from Africa, from South Asia, from India, who are students or workers in the country, and they need to be treated properly as well.
How do we prevent a situation in Ukraine that clearly has happened in Afghanistan? So if Ukraine falls into Russian hands, we got to get humanitarian aid in there and not have those folks be held hostage. The Afghan people are essentially being held hostage by perhaps it's distrust of the West, of the Taliban, however you want to look at it. But there are a whole bunch of people suffering as a result of this, and we've not been able to break that. How do we prevent that from happening in Ukraine?
Well, it doesn't need to happen in Afghanistan, and it doesn't need to happen in Ukraine. And I don't want to be glib, but we've got to just do the right thing. If we were doing the right thing in Afghanistan, it wouldn't have a starvation crisis. And doing the right thing in the Afghan context is about international economics. In respect of the Ukraine crisis, it's going to be about establishing really effective mechanisms for getting aid into Ukraine across borders, across conflict lines. But it's also going to involve the political and economic pressure to stop the fighting. We as humanitarians can staunch the bleeding, if you like, but we need the politicians to stop the killing. And that is going to be a long process if one takes seriously, which I think we should, the readout of the Putin-Macron call yesterday. Things are going to get worse, but the essential requirement on us is to do the right thing. And from my point of view, there is a danger here that the people in Afghanistan or in Ethiopia or in Yemen who we're also serving, they end up paying the price of the focus of the world's attention on Ukraine. That would be quite wrong. We need to do the right thing in both theaters.
I know that you are focused on the humanitarian crisis. You are a former politician. You are a former foreign secretary. I am curious, watching Europe unite right now, it took a while. Europe seems more united than ever. Without Zelensky's bravery, would Europe be this united right now?
I think so, that President Zelensky's done an amazing job. But frankly, the penny really dropped when the Russians invaded Ukraine 8 days ago. And I think that the European reaction over that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, where they moved from doubt about the intelligence, at least on part of some of the Western Europeans, to a full embrace of a new posture, a new military posture, a new economic posture, a new geopolitical posture. I think it's very significant indeed for Germany to be so out and so loud about its defense commitments, for Sweden and Finland to be thinking about joining NATO, for Ireland to be party to European decisions on the military front. This is a major change. And the critical thing is that momentum is now built. I do recognize and I'm happy to answer questions about the divisions that you've spoken to in the past. The time for divisions is over. The time for real action and real unity is now, and that needs to go beyond the transatlantic alliance. This is now a global effort to counter impunity with accountability in the name of a rules-based order. And that applies not just on military questions, it applies across the piece, climate, healthcare, etc. as well.
David Miliband, it's well said. I got much to follow up on that. Really appreciate you coming on, and I'm glad to help bring some attention to your efforts here. Good luck.